The world is always a busy, crazy place that if you read history, actually read it, you'll understand that and know that the nuts that you see manifesting themselves right now are not unusual. They have been around with us for a while. I was going to touch on a few things today, one of which right now there we go. I'm reading this. It's a short book on Socrates by a man named Paul Johnson, who is quite the historian. He lives in London. He's written several other very good books. But the reason I bring up Socrates, he's kind of there was philosophy before Socrates, but for us, for Western civilization, he's kind of the beginning of it, and we don't know that much about him other than what Plato wrote, and that's what we know most. But also, and I mentioned in the previous post, a man named Xenophon, who was a warrior and a politician and an intellectual, and who wrote about Socrates. And we've lost a lot. Cicero, the Roman senator, orator, was a great admirer of Socrates and wrote some things about him. A lot of what was known was lost, especially with the onset of the fall of the Western Roman Empire and so on. But one of the things that he wrote, I thought was interesting, and this is a paraphrase: human beings are not the helpless victims of fate, but masters of their own destiny. And I think that's been a cornerstone of Western civilization for the last 2,500 years. Plato kind of went a little bit the other way, but then a student of Plato's, Aristotle, kind of went back. And Aristotle was actually, beginning with the Renaissance, was rediscovered. He was known somewhat, but more of his writings were rediscovered and more was developed. But a large part of who we are came from the idea of being able to express yourself, to build up yourself, to develop a classless society. One of the things about Athens it was a disciplined, a self-disciplined society, but its discipline was balanced by intellectual freedom. And it was a mob that ended up killing Aristotle. I mean, he voluntarily did it because he couldn't see him, and I'm not going to get into all of that, see himself. He could have taken exile and left. But, and then later, many years later, Aristotle left because he had been a teacher and a favorite of Alexander the Great, and after Alexander the Great died, the mob was taking hold again, and they probably would have done something with Aristotle, but he left. So freedom of expression, and that was something that Socrates believed in, and he was a bit of a pest in their market area. And a lot of the younger men congregated around him because he could just drive you insane with questions and getting to make you see or not want to see where you were really coming from. He was one of those people that could just zero in and one question after the other. And part of the reason for this video today is we are once again moving toward that mob mentality, which we humans seem to like to do because everybody wants to be part of the group. And it has happened throughout history. A French writer who wrote, and it was mostly about the French Revolution, but his name was Gustave Le Bon. and it was called The Madness of Crowds. And I've mentioned before about the tulip bubble, which, believe it or not, took place in, I guess, in the late 1600s in Holland, Belgium, throughout there. And that, you have tulips, and tulips originally, I guess, they came from Turkey, and I'm getting away here, but people began investing in them for growing them and whatnot. It was a crop, and the prices went up and up and up and up, and it became a mania, and it became a craze, and eventually the bubble collapsed. But and financial bubbles are like that. People began investing, and I know people who are involved in helping people plan their financial futures. And one of the things they have to fight is the crowd, because someone will be on television, or they'll be talking to their dentist, or they'll be talking to their friends at a cocktail party, and some stock will come up. And everybody's always looking for the major return and the huge return. I had an uncle talking to me one time, and he was telling me that he was asking me, because I was in the financial business, he wanted to invest, but he would only invest in something that gave him a 50% return. And that's just not doable. I mean, you can get it every once in a while on a quirk, but overall, for all long, you're never going to get 50%. And you have people that build these Ponzi schemes based on that. So, and then you have governments that get based on, they get people, demagogues, who get you to believing everybody goes one way. And then if you don't believe that way, and we're seeing a lot of that now, then you have to be cut out of the herd, and done away with. And it happens over and over. And I'm not getting into the Nazi, the communism, the this, the that. It's always going on. And in high school, we see it, and I'm a big believer in what happens to you in high school, you carry with you forever after that. But you have the groups, and this group and that, and there's always an in group, and so forth, and they kind of control them. The other groups are kind of built, but they want to be in the in group. So you get into this, and independent thinking goes away. And we, at one time, and I was fortunate, I guess, when I started college, which was a long time ago, there were still professors. Most of them were, I guess, what you would call liberal, but they were into discussion. They were into making you think, and not necessarily think their way. I took an undergraduate constitutional law course, and my professor was very liberal, and you could argue with her all you wanted to, and she didn't care. But she used case law, which is what they mostly, I guess they still do, use in law school. So if you had an argument and you were going against what she was saying, she didn't care if you argued with her, but you had to use case law, not your feelings, not your emotion. And right now, and again, this happens over and over and over again, we're having people that are going purely on emotion. They're not thinking things through. And I'm not saying that's right now, that's predominantly people's on the crazy left, but there are people on the crazy right also that only want their way. It's the only way. And right now in Canada, you have, and this is what I call the uprising of the bubbas, you have truck drivers. And these are the most polite bubbas I've ever seen in my life, but they are causing consternation to the people who have been in control for a long time. And ultimately, the people in control are going to lose, because they're trying to force feed what they think. And you can't do that. And you can do it for a little while. And that's the thing is, the people who want to control you, whether they're on the left side of the spectrum or the right side of the spectrum, want to control what you think and what you believe. And they truly believe they can do that because they're both nuts. They don't want you to think for yourself. They don't want you to. And if you think for yourself, sometimes something on the right makes sense. Sometimes something on the left makes sense. You come together in what we call compromise. That's how the Constitution of this country was written. It was nearly all compromise. And compromise works. Mainly it works when both sides come away thinking they didn't get everything they wanted, because they didn't. But Socrates, and I'm going to try to get more into this, but you have it's Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Christianity. Those are the four pillars of Western civilization. And a lot of Christianity uses Aristotelian, Platonic, and by way of Socratic thought processes. And that's how a lot of the first universities were built. And you need to remember this. People are crazy against Christianity a lot now, even and especially in universities, even in the universities that were founded by Christians, and that's a big chunk, especially like the Ivy League. All but one of those schools were founded by Christians, and that was the University of Pennsylvania. But anyway, you have to have and allow free thought. You have, and I said in another deal, video, you have to be able to argue. If you can't argue, there's going to be an explosion down the road. People have to be able to go at each other. And if you can't handle someone disagreeing with you, then you just have something, you need to sit back and read some more and think. And that's part of the problem. We ain't reading enough, other than, I think Twitter was 140 characters. Someone told me, I'm not on Twitter, that it's more than that now. But to really think things through, you can't think in terms of emojis, bumper stickers, 140 whatever characters, or just a quick 14-second feed off a newscast or whatever. You've got to exercise your gray matter. You have to push. You have to be pushed. Otherwise, this isn't worth anything, because you're not really thinking. And I have another quote here. It was from a man named James Allen. And he's a bit of a positive thinker type, and it was early 20th century. But we need to look at this, and we need to think about it. Adversity does not build character. It reveals it. And you always hear, well, it takes hard times to produce good people. And to some extent, that's true. But you always need to be pushed. Life is not supposed to be easy. And yeah, it'd be nice if it were easy, but then you get fat, drunk, and sloppy. And you don't want to be fat, drunk, and sloppy. And I know I'm probably not supposed to say some of that now. But anyway, you got to, when I went through basic training, what the sergeants were fond of saying was they were going to turn us into lean, mean, fighting machines. And they were serious about that. So their purpose was to make you somebody who could go out and face the crap that you were about to get, that was about to get thrown at you, and they were going to weed out the ones that couldn't do that. So you want adversity. You want to be able to be, you want to be challenged. You want to be able to have thoughts to come back. You don't want to run and hide and curl up in a fetal position and cry because someone doesn't agree with you. You would never get along with Socrates, and ultimately they killed him because the tyrants that had gotten control of Athens while he was there couldn't face the questions. Believe me, you have to learn to face the questions, and you have to be able to stand up and argue about it. Y'all have a good day.